If you haven't yet, you should probably check your local McDonald's because hot and spicy McChickens are back, and so are controller setting videos. Hey guys, Nightfall here, and it's been almost 3 months now since my last video that I made on my own controller settings. That's like a whole season's worth of time. And in that time span, I've achieved many new feats, including my first 100 kill game. But have my controller settings stayed the exact same? Absolutely not. So today, I'm going to give you an updated video on my settings so that you can take full advantage of them the way you did before. Now, as always, my settings are not final, as you'll be able to see as we go through this video. Some of them I've changed slightly, while others have changed a little more drastically. Some I also feel aren't final yet, and we'll discuss those as we get to them. So first few things I want to make clear, this is for controller only, and if you somehow made it past both the title and the thumbnail, this is your final warning. If you haven't understood, these are controller settings. Now that we got that disclaimer out of the way, let's get in here and trigger some mouse and keyboard players. The controller I use is a Turtle Beast Stealth Ultra, which I'll put up on screen here. And the one thing you hear a lot about with controllers and the top players is overclocking. If you've never heard of overclocking your controller, it could be why you're losing so many gunfights. So in that department, this controller is nothing special. Both wired and wireless, you get the same results of 250 Hz polling rate, 4 millisecond response time, and you cannot overclock it. If you don't understand what either of those terms are, let me give you a quick and easy breakdown. Polling rate is the time it takes the controller to understand that you've changed your input. An example of that would be I'm moving left and now I changed because I want to move right. Or an in-game example that some players get super annoyed with, air strafing. Having a higher polling rate is better, and using this controller, I put myself at a slight disadvantage when it comes to things like air strafing and movement, especially when you compare it to another type of controller that some other of the pros probably use, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. Latency on a controller is the time it takes for the game to perform the action that you pressed on the controller, and in this case, the lower the latency, the better. So with all that being said, many other players use a controller I finally felt that I needed to try because it was on sale for Black Friday, called the GameSir G7 SE. It has a slightly slower latency at about 5.5 milliseconds, but a much faster polling rate at 1000 Hz, so 4 times of what I have now. If you want to see me do a video comparing the two playing XDefiant to see if there really is a difference, let me know down in the comments. But before this gets to be a complete controller review, let's go ahead and get into these settings. So the first two options for button and stick layout I have on default, and that's all a preference thing that has not changed. And I do have 2 back buttons that I use for jumping and crouching, which makes life way easier. Aim assist I have set to standard, with the strength and follow set to 0. And the first difference between now and the old video is the aim assist follow. I used to have this setting at -2. However, recently the aim assist has started feeling like it's been almost nerfed. So to compensate for that, I've cranked it back up to 0, and it seems okay for now. That is, until they continue to silently nerf the controller aim assist, if that is indeed what they're doing, which many other people have complained about the same thing. For those of you that got used to playing on 0 and now it feels worse, not really sure what to tell you. The next setting is another big change for me, and that is the response curve. And I used to have reverse S-curve and now have it set to linear. And something I forgot to mention in the old video was the controller I use actually has built-in response curves for each individual stick, and you could set that right on the controller. In my case, the right stick is set to a precision curve, which looks like this. So I'm not entirely sure how or if those two interact with the one set on the controller and the one setting in the game. So your experience with the response curve might be a little bit different. So for that, when it comes to your response curve, I highly recommend reading the description in the settings and see which one works out best for you, or just test all 3. But next up comes another medium-sized change for me, and that's my overall sensitivity. These used to be at 45 horizontal, 30 vertical. Currently I have them set at 50 and 35 respectively, and I think I'm very close to making the jump to at least 55 horizontal and maybe 37 vertical, or I may just leave vertical at 35, not sure. These two numbers I feel will probably continuously change, and I won't finally settle on something until the end of like year 1. And also, as you might expect, increasing the overall sensitivity also increases the ADS sensitivity as well, which mine is currently set on 0.75 for low zoom scopes, which is anything below 8 times, and 0.65 for sights anything set 8 times or higher scope. The only change here is to the low zoom, which used to match at 0.65 as well, but I've since changed that and made it a little bit more sensitive so you can get those nice crisp flicks. Everything else from dead zones all the way down is all the same as it was 3 months ago. And one pretty big change outside of the actual controller settings that I did want to highlight is I've actually lowered my field of view from 120 to 107. Now, I've been playing FPS shooters as what I would call a casual above average gamer for quite a long time now. And believe it or not, for those of you that may not have been around or gaming for a long time, the ability to change the field of view setting in a game is relatively new, especially for those on console. This has been a feature that's been around for some time on PC, but I'm starting to see more and more console games get this. And forgive me if I sound dumb when I say this, but originally I always thought field of view was simply a preference in how you want the game to look. So naturally, if you could tolerate it being that stretched out, more FOV means more better. But playing this game, I was quick to learn that having 120 field of view also means that you have to sacrifice something else. And that thing that you're sacrificing could be your accuracy. And you might be thinking, how the hell do the two correlate? Well, here's an in-game example that I've made a little bit more drastic than 120 to 107, just so that we can see the difference. So if you have your field of view set to 120, notice how far away the target is and how small they seem when I aim at them. Now, if you drop that field of view all the way down to 90 and zoom into that same target at the same distance, it looks a little bit larger, and this could make it way easier to shoot and be more accurate. So long way of saying more FOV is not more better. There is a very fine line that you need to get to find a balance between how far of your peripheral vision do you want to be able to see and how large your enemy is when you're aiming at them and how accurate can you be. The best example or test that I would say that you could do is go to the firing range, aim at the furthest target, and slowly decrease your FOV until you become just crazy inaccurate. Once you get to that point, probably back it off about 3 or 4 FOV, maybe even 5, and see how that feels. And this kind of goes back to all the people that clown me for using a hollow sight instead of a red dot, saying it takes up much more of your screen. Understand that it doesn't matter how much more you're able to see. If you can't shoot the things you're seeing more means nothing. So just find that happy medium and forget what everybody else says. But that's all my controller settings plus a bonus one, and I've heard my last video has actually helped a few people out and even made them get a little bit better. So I hope this one does the same for more people, and if you enjoyed the video, make sure to leave a like as it really helps the channel. You guys have no idea. And also, if you're not already, and there's about a 64.9% chance you're not, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll catch you in the next upload.